Well, good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
It's great to be here with all of you this morning. I actually started out over at Pleasant Grove at 8 a.m. This is a far more civilized time for church, so I appreciate that. It had been a long time since I'd been at an 8 a.m. service, but no, I'm glad to be here. And just talk to you a little bit about Home Sweet Home Ministries. Obviously, I will be talking about the initiative that has been most covered over the past considerable part of the past 2 years, really talking about this non-congregate shelter program that we are in the process of building. And so I'm going to share a lot of details about that. But I always like to start with a little bit of history of Home Sweet Home Ministries. Home Sweet Home was actually founded on Thanksgiving Day in 1917. So this will be our 108th year serving the Central Illinois community. The very first thing that we did was we served a Thanksgiving banquet and shared the gospel with people who wouldn't have been with family or wouldn't have been able to celebrate. And so every fall is a busy time for Home Sweet Home because we continue to lean into that tradition and honor our tradition of being founded on Thanksgiving. But this fall is a little bit busier than all of our other falls because in addition to working towards Thanksgiving, we are also in the process of building the bridge. The bridge is our new non-congregate shelter village that is in the process of being built and that will be opening sometime this coming winter. And so I want to share information about that with you, but I also want to tell you why we're doing this. And to do that, I want to start by reading some scripture out of the book of Matthew to all of you. And this is the greatest commandment. It's Matthew chapter 22, verses 34 through 40. Hearing that Jesus had silenced the Sadducees, the Pharisees got together. One of them, an expert in the law, tested him with this question: "Teacher, which is the greatest commandment in the law?" Jesus replied, "Love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your mind. This is the first and greatest commandment. And the second is like it. Love your neighbor as yourself. All the law and the prophets hang on these two commandments." So the bridge at Home Sweet Home Ministries is just the latest initiative that our organization, our ministry, is undertaking to demonstrate Christ's love in this community, in this Central Illinois community. We're doing it because there's a real need. There are people who are stuck outside, who do not have a safe place to sleep tonight, last night. People who are surviving day to day with the bare bones of shelter, of food, of access to hygiene and personal hygiene opportunities. People who are suffering night after night after night. The reality is, we've always had a number of people who've been stuck outside. But over the last couple of years, we've seen that number increase and become far more visible than it used to be. It used to be that the folks who were sleeping outside were tucked back in the woods, maybe back behind a fast food restaurant or places that aren't very visible in the community. But a couple of years ago, that changed. That changed with the establishment of a large tent encampment that was set up right next door to Home Sweet Home Ministries campus on the south edge of downtown Bloomington. That encampment started with one tent and soon quickly grew to an encampment that on any given night would shelter between 30 and 40 of our community members. It was no longer a phenomenon that we could turn a blind eye to. It was no longer a situation that our community could deny that we had a crisis occurring. And it was a situation that compelled me to start asking and taking to heart this question: who's my neighbor? That Jesus also talks about in the parable of the Good Samaritan. But to love our neighbors as ourselves became something that weighed heavily on me and all of us at Home Sweet Home Ministries. We literally saw people next door to us, our literal neighbors, suffering, trying to endure, experiencing difficulty after difficulty. And so we had to take seriously this challenge that Jesus issues to us to love our neighbor as ourself. To do that, I started to think about, what if it was me in that encampment? What if I was someone who didn't have a place that I could safely sleep tonight? What would it be like to have nothing but a thin wall of nylon with a zipper keeping me safe at night, rather than the locked door on my house that I take for granted? What if it was me having to endure the heat of the summer, trying to survive in an encampment that has no shade, that has no climate control, rather than in the house where I run my central air when it gets a little over 85 degrees or 80 degrees. My wife doesn't like that 85 level, but what if it was me? What if it was you? What would you need? What would you want? How would you want the community to show you love? How would you want an organization dedicated to serving people who are on hard times? What would you want from them? And that's where we started to really feel convicted that we needed to do something. We needed to respond in very real ways. So my staff immediately started to provide what assistance they could to the people who were stuck outside, to our neighbors experiencing homelessness. And they started to provide survival supplies, things like clean water, first aid kits to be able to treat wounds and abrasions and cuts that come with living outside, food so that they could eat, replacement tents when tent poles would break. All of these essential survival supplies, my staff immediately started to do above and beyond what they were already busy with and responsible for. As a result of that, we got to know our neighbors in a way that we didn't know them before. We got to know who they were, we got to know their stories, what their struggles were, and so we learned a number of things that were really important for us to understand. The first being that the vast majority of the people who were camping, who were not indoors, were long-term members of the community. There were people who were experiencing homelessness longer than I have lived in Bloomington. I've worked at Home Sweet Home for over 16 years. For the first 12 of those, I commuted from Mahomet over to Bloomington. I've lived in Bloomington now for the past 4.5 years. Some of our neighbors in tents have been stuck outside longer than that. Many of them have stories of family disruption, family conflict, family trauma. In fact, we learned every single person who was in that encampment is a survivor of trauma of some sort. We also learned that many of them struggle with mental health issues. Some struggle with substance use issues. And all of them didn't really have any sense of hope for their lives improving in any significant way. They felt stuck. They felt hopeless. They felt tired, run down. They felt overlooked, or worse, judged for the struggles that they were experiencing. And so, like I said, we were trying to show them the love that we could, the best that we could at that time, going above and beyond the things that we were already busy with. While my staff were doing that, I started to do research. I started to figure out, what do we do about this? What can be done about unsheltered homelessness? And that's where I started to learn what other communities across the United States had been doing. Other communities across the country had started to shift how they provide services to people experiencing homelessness. They started to shift away from the traditional approaches that Home Sweet Home we've always done for over 100 years. Those traditional approaches look like big buildings with lots of beds put in big rooms, where people who don't know one another, who all have a story, are expected to lie down and sleep and not experience any conflict or discord over the course of the night. We started to shift from that to a new model that's called non-congregate, which means basically people have their private spaces rather than having to share a big congregate space. As the concept of congregation, where we're all together in church. When it comes to people with stories of trauma, struggles with mental health stability, struggles with sobriety, putting a bunch of people in one space together, that's not successful for many, many people. And that keeps people stuck outside. So as I learned what other communities were doing, we started to try and get something done here locally. I started talking to our municipal leaders, our city government, the town of Normal government leaders, the county board, people across different levels of authority and responsibility. And I started to present, hey, this is something that could be done. This is being done literally in dozens and dozens of communities across the country. And it's being done with success that outstrips our traditional approaches. It's more effective. And it took quite some time to build the community will and the buy-in for us to get to the point where I was finally able to buy land to build the bridge. That's the name for our shelter village that we're building. We're building the bridge almost next door to Home Sweet Home Ministries. Not in the same place where the tent encampment was, but just across the street from it, basically, is where we're winding up being able to build the bridge. I was able to build the community will for our service partners to willingly come together with Home Sweet Home Ministries to address this community-wide issue. I was able to access some funding from the McLean County grant funds. But more, I was able to steward the resources that Home Sweet Home has always been blessed with through private philanthropy, private donations from individuals and churches like this one. And so we were able to start to build the bridge. I want to spend a few minutes talking about and describing what it is that we're building. It's under construction right now. If you drive by the intersection of Oakland Avenue and South Main Street in Bloomington, you will see our construction site. It's right there. Just a quick 60-second walk from Home Sweet Home's traditional, long-standing location in town. You'll see that it's under construction. But what you're seeing, and I brought a couple posters to try and illustrate this, but as most churches, most people sit in the back, so you probably can't see the posters very well. Feel free to come up and look at them after the service. I do the same thing. We're building a non-congregate shelter village. It's a private gated community where the residents of the shelter village will be able to come and go according to the schedule that works for them. But people who aren't pre-approved to be on site, they won't be able to come and cause trouble. They won't be able to come and create havoc, like what happens in tent encampments where people are trying to survive. This is a safe place. We're focusing on providing a safe place where people don't have to worry about, are they going to survive, so they can start to think about other things. We're building 48 sleeping cabins, 40 of which are for single individuals, and 8 of which are for couples who are stuck outside. These sleeping cabins are very small. I don't even use the term tiny home because tiny homes are bigger than what we're building. We're building sleeping cabins. These are big enough for a bed, a desk and a chair, dresser, college dorm size microwave and mini fridge, but not a whole lot else is in these spaces. I always like to emphasize the 2 most important features of these sleeping cabins, besides those basic accommodations. The 2 most important features. The first is it's connected to electricity, so it can be cool in the summertime and warm in the wintertime. We have a through-the-wall heating and cooling unit in every single sleeping cabin. We don't have plumbing run to them. We have central bathrooms in a bathhouse that will provide the bathroom and shower facilities that the residents will need. That's on the campus, just a little walk across the campus, not in the sleeping cabin. but they are connected to power. But the most important feature of these sleeping cabins, I think that because of what we hear from our neighbors who are currently stuck outside, is the front door that locks. The people will have a safe and secure and comfortable place to get rest. They won't have to worry, will their sleeping cabin survive the wind? Like they have to worry about their tent surviving. They won't have to worry about, what if it's raining? Am I going to stay dry? They're going to stay dry. What if it's bitter cold? I'm going to stay warm. They don't have to worry about those things anymore. They're not going to have to worry about where their next meal is coming from. They'll just be able to walk right across the street to our dining center at our existing campus, where we're serving 3 meals a day every single day of the year already. Or if they don't want to do that, they can have a microwave meal in their sleeping cabin. Or if they don't want to do that, in the clubhouse, and that's one of the pictures that you can see, the large building that's on the poster. In the clubhouse, we're building a full kitchen. It's going to be like the kitchen in your home. And they'll be able to come in and use the pots and pans and cook the food that they want to prepare for themselves, if that's what they want to do. People are going to be safe. People are going to be secure. People are going to have their survival needs addressed. So rather than thinking about, how am I surviving tonight, they're going to think about, what am I going to do tomorrow? What appointment can I now schedule and keep because I know what day of the week it is? That doctor's appointment, the psychiatrist's appointment, substance use evaluation, all of those things people are going to be able to start to pursue. That job interview that they haven't been able to keep themselves clean, and so they don't even bother looking for employment because they know if they interact with a potential employer, they're not going to be taken seriously. Now they have all of that resolved, and they can start thinking long-term and making plans for their future. But we're not just focused on giving people safety and stability and security. We're focused also on providing what supports they need. This is part of loving our neighbors as ourselves. Each of us in our lives needs some kind of support, right? Each of us relies on family, friends, doctors, counselors, people like that are in our lives. And if you're somebody trying to survive outside, you're cut off from all of that. You're trying to survive. That's everything that you can deal with. So at the Bridge, rather than just provide that accommodation for folks, we're also partnering with our nonprofit colleagues from across the community to come on site to provide their services. In the clubhouse, where we've got that kitchen that I mentioned, we're also building offices, we're building 5 offices, 2 of which my staff will occupy 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. We're always going to be there. We're always going to be there to ensure the safety and well-being of the residents of the Bridge, and to ensure people who aren't supposed to be there aren't coming in, and to provide day-to-day supports. But beyond the work that my team will be doing, our nonprofit partners are coming on site also. It's very exciting. We're changing the system of how supportive services are offered. Many of the individuals that we will be serving in the Bridge will need access to mental health supports. So our partner organizations who provide those services have committed to coming on site and providing on-site mental health support, on-site access to psychiatric resources for those individuals who need it. For our Bridge residents who are struggling with sobriety, our colleagues who provide substance use disorder treatment, they're coming on site to provide those services. Our colleagues who support people in finding and keeping employment are coming on site to provide those services. Our colleagues who provide access to health care, to doctors and nurses, they're coming on site to provide those services. And our colleagues who work alongside us in helping people find housing, that's right, they're coming on site to provide those services. They're going to occupy 3 of those 5 offices that I mentioned. And we're going to provide those services throughout the week to the people who are residing at the bridge, rather than sending them across town now and having them face obstacles of transportation and navigation. All of that is right where they're already located. We're very excited about the change in how we're able to love our neighbors that's coming about with the bridge. Some other things that I'd like to share about the bridge are that all of the residents of the bridge, we're focusing on building this for people who are stuck outside, for people who don't have access to supports within the existing system. We will continue to operate our other shelter that we've always done. The Salvation Army will continue to operate their shelter. And we're going to add this to the mix so that people who are shut out of those supports will now have a new opportunity to come in. But it's not going to be without expectation. We're going to have every person who's residing at the bridge sign a residential agreement. That's what we call it. It'll consist of some basic requirements and rules to be a safe neighbor to others, to be somebody who's plugged in to services, to be somebody who does their part to keep up the maintenance of their sleeping cabin that they're assigned, to help pick up the grounds or whatever other way that they can help out around the bridge or across the street at our other campus. They'll be asked to be part of that as well. So this is a highly supportive environment, but it's also an accountable environment. People won't come in and just think, well, shoot, all my problems are solved. That's not part of our expectation. My staff will, from day one, start working with every single person towards a long-term transition to permanent housing. The bridge is not permanent housing. The bridge is the bridge between being unsheltered and permanent housing, but it is not the permanent housing itself. We will be working with people while they're residing in the bridge to make that transition and move back into a stable place, a place where they have experienced restoration of identity, of capability, and of place in the community, so that they will continue to be neighbors, but they will be housed neighbors instead of unsheltered neighbors. Construction is proceeding almost on schedule. Took us a little bit longer to buy the land, so we had hoped to be able to open before winter set in. The delay in acquiring the land meant that we had been talking about a mid-December opening. Right now, we know of some essential electric circuitry components. I don't really know what they are, but it makes it possible to supply power to all of the sleeping cabins. Unfortunately, it's a delay that we didn't anticipate. So now we're talking maybe by the end of December into early January is when we're going to be able to open the bridge. That's still remarkably fast. We broke ground in July. We're building this in months, not years, to be able to bring people indoors. We're excited about that. We're already laying the groundwork on how we're prioritizing people to come in. We're developing the programming. We're about to hire staff to get them trained up and ready for when we open. And like I said, if you drive by the intersection of Oakland Avenue and South Main Street in Bloomington, you're going to see the clubhouse is framed up. The roof is going on. The bathhouse, the walls are built. The roof is about to go on. The foundations have been poured for the sleeping cabins. They're going to start showing up this week. By the end of this week, we expect to see some of the sleeping cabins on site. And so we're very close to providing this new opportunity to really show our neighbors who are unhoused hope, to show them love, to remind them that not only do we love God with all of our heart, mind, and strength, but we love them as well. And I'm grateful for the support that churches like Ellsworth UMC provide to Home Sweet Home. I'm thankful for the support and the prayers that all of you offer for the work that Home Sweet Home does here to serve people in our broader Central Illinois community. It's how we've always functioned, and it's how we need to continue to love our neighbors as ourselves. Appreciate the opportunity to share with all of you. I'm going to stick around after the service. Anybody who wants to ask me questions, I'm sure you've got questions. I will stick around as long as there are people asking me questions today. I'm happy to have that conversation with all of you. But really, I just wanted to thank all of you for the support that your church has always provided to Home Sweet Home, and pray that that continues as we do this new thing to demonstrate Christ's love. Thank you.